Hey everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Players Club. I'm your host, Levi the Heartbreak Kid Valentine at Levi_Valentine on Twitter. Joining me are my co-hosts, Brent Hud Hikes. Follow him at Brent Hikes, Heikes, on Twitter, and Trevin the Baby Maker Cremosta, whose tweets are too hot for your eyes. Trevin still loves that nickname.
Y'all know how to make it stop.
You can't. It's too late.
Every time Trevin's like shaking his head.
Fellas, we got less than 2 weeks until, well, almost exactly 2 weeks until the season on that first Thursday night game, 2 weeks from tomorrow. And we've got big-time NFL news coming out as the season approaches. We had some quarterback competition winners announced today. Maybe a little bit of a surprise, and Teddy Bridgewater as the starter in Denver, and then maybe a little less surprising, we had Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, which I think we all expected. And then the Red Rifle rides again in Chicago for the time being, at least, as Andy Dalton will start the year for the Bears. Fellas, what do you think about these? Trevin, any surprises here?
I was a little bit surprised on Bridgewater. I think he's a better option for him than Locke, but I think you have said that before on the show, Levi, that I have agreed with, that it's just so tough to go back the other way if they do give the job to Teddy and he struggles. To go back to Locke at that point when you've already shown you've lost confidence is tough. So I think Teddy has to be a clear-cut winner for them to name him the starter at this point, and he must have been. So you really lost an option to go back and have any confidence, I think. So he's the guy going forward.
Yeah, I guess if there's one to pick that was shocking, it would be Bridgewater. But, I mean, I think there's a very good chance that we see Locke later on this year. So he's got another chance to redeem himself.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Like, the confounding thing to me is just why they did not draft a quarterback if they were not going to start Locke this year. If you knew you were going to replace him, or at least try to replace him, why not take a shot on Justin Fields or Mac Jones when they fall to you like that? I just don't get it.
Because cornerbacks are more valuable than quarterbacks. Isn't that what they said?
Yeah, I think that's why they're the highest paid players, right?
Yeah, that's what they said, though. That's what the Broncos said for why they did it that way. They said a top-end corner is more valuable in the NFL than a top-end quarterback.
Oh, my. Yeah. If they luck into another – and – yeah, the problem is, like, Bridgewater and that team are going to be good enough. They're not going to have a high pick next year to get one of the top quarterbacks. And so you're hoping really at this point, I think, that they just get either Aaron Rodgers, like was rumored this offseason, especially during the draft, or, I mean, maybe Watson or somebody else goes there, because otherwise you're just doomed to be a playoff team or a fringe playoff team with a mediocre veteran quarterback like Bridgewater and never be able to get a quarterback of the future or win a Super Bowl. You're just stuck in purgatory.
As a Raiders fan, I'm glad they did it this way.
Yeah. And then Andy Dalton, enjoy your time while it lasts. I think it'll be relatively short-lived.
And I think that's the same way there. You don't want to start with the rookie and have him struggle. Let the experienced guy go out there if they're close right now.
Yeah.
What if the Bears start like 6-2? I mean, they have a pretty good team. Do you think Dalton could start the whole year, you think? What are the chances that happens?
I don't think it's very high. They did make the playoffs last year, and yeah, at that point, keep throwing them out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know either. Like, I think it would just depend a lot on what's going on in practice. Like, even if you're winning, if Fields is clearly the better player in practice, I don't know how you don't put him out there and push, for a deeper run in the playoffs. But it'll be interesting to see for sure.
You think there's any truth to the rumor of Dalton having blackmail on Nagy?
I hadn't heard that rumor, but
I haven't either.
We're just starting it right now.
Yeah. But I'm going to leave that one alone. We have other big news in the non-quarterback category. We had a couple of running backs with some big news. Unfortunately, Brent finally drafted a running back, and that running back is going to miss the entire season. So, Brent, give us let it all out, Brent. I know you've got some emotions tied up in this. Let's hear it.
I don't know. I'm okay with it. I love Travis Etienne. He was a fun player to watch in college. I thought it was pretty cool that he's playing with Trevor Lawrence, and I still like James Robinson. I mean, if you look at all my best ball drafts, James Robinson is one player that I have owned the most out of all my drafts. So I still expect big things now. I'm really happy with that. But a couple of my dynasties, I own ETN. That sucks. Just putting him on IR last night. I don't know. I still expect some big things out of ETN. I wouldn't go overboard and try to trade him. I almost did last night though. So it sucks overall. I mean, James Robinson though, his value is just shooting up there.
Yeah. The history of Liz Frank injuries or surgeries, not just injuries, is a little bit worse than I knew offhand. There was kind of a list of players who have had to have that, and they take quite a downturn after they have it. None of them were as young as ETN, but scared me a little bit to see it.
Yeah, and I looked at that list you sent. I don't know if you happen to have it handy, Trevor, can pull it up, but it wasn't great, but it was also kind of like the Achilles thing. It's like how many of those guys were really the caliber of player that ETN was, and how many were at that age. And it seems like, at least, listening to the medical professionals for the most part, maybe there's a little more optimism with the Liz Frank than there is with the Achilles.
And it happened at the right time of the year too. That's good that it happened like now instead of like week 12 or something. So he'll be ready for next year.
I am a little bit more concerned with Robinson than you, Brent. He didn't have much for competition there last year, and he definitely exceeded that. But with Carlos Hyde there, I think it's going to take some carries. And with his Urban Meyer being the coach, I mean, Christ, he was paying Tim Tebow to be a tight end till last week. I think he's going to be giving Carlos Hyde maybe too many carries this year.
Maybe, but I mean, James Robinson ended like the number 1 or 2, 3 running back last year overall. Top 3
in PPR scoring, he was number
4th. Yeah,
4th. I mean, I think if he's healthy the whole year, he can definitely be top 10. So he's getting drafted. Last night I did a best ball. I just kind of want to see where Robinson was going to land. I got him in the 6th round, and before he was going like around 8th or 9th. I do think eventually he'll climb up to like 4th round, but still I think that's a pretty good get if you can get him in the 4th round.
Yeah.
So I do have that list handy quick, Levi. I'm not going to go through each one and all the information just because it doesn't really say how long each one was into their careers and what exactly they did afterwards. But Cedric Benson never played again afterwards. Amir Abdullah has taken a downturn, not as explosive since then. Santonio Holmes declined afterwards. Ronnie Brown, Darren McFadden, Maurice Jones-Drew played one more season with a decline. Marquise Brown hasn't lived up to expectations. Cam Newton, 2020, sharp decline. Jake Locker played one more season and retired at 26.
Yeah, there's some of those like Jake Locker, the last one you mentioned. I don't know if it was going to pan out either way. So it's just so hard, and it's the same with Cam Akers. Like he's so much younger and so much better as a player than I think a lot of the other players with that injury.
Yep.
And medical advancements continue to happen. So I'm not completely out on ETN like I am. Maybe more so with Akers, but certainly not how you want to see him start his career.
Yeah.
And
me
Brent,
too.
As far as James Robinson, I think it's fantastic this year if you're a contender and you have him on your roster still. You get a lot better production than you were probably anticipating if ETN was healthy. But I think if you're not, I would not be the one holding the bag at the end of the year, because when ETN comes back, I think James Robinson kind of sees that role diminish again, and who knows if he ever gets that type of workload again after this season.
It's so hard for undrafted running backs.
I know.
No matter how successful you are, it's just tough to ever get a foothold.
And a lot depends on how he does this year. If he has another year like last year, who knows? Maybe he'll get that big contract and they'll treat him like a highly drafted player. Who knows?
Yeah, and it's just hard to, like, they just had him and saw everything. I mean, I know it's a different coaching staff and everything, but we all know what he did last year, and they still took a running back in the 1st round. So, I mean, that makes it tough. And then you look at, like, Phillip Lindsay is probably the most recent example who has had really good production as an undrafted free agent, and he went over 1,000 yards, the first 2 years in the league, and then just got phased out, and now he's fighting for relevancy in Houston. So it can happen quick.
Big time disrespected by the Broncos for Lindsey.
And then the other big news, speaking of disrespect, Darrell Henderson's probably feeling a little disrespected because the Rams traded for Sonny Michel from the Patriots, and it sounds like, according to Schefter, that they view Michel as the potential lead back in that offense. So, Brent, do you expect that to be the case this year?
Maybe. We talked a little bit about it before. I mean, Darrell Henderson, I think he is what he is. He's not a full-time running back, and maybe they just didn't see it with Xavier Jones and Jake Funk, and they had to get somebody else. And Sonny Michel he's a vet. I mean, he's played a couple years, played decent some of the time, but honestly, I'd probably stay away from this backfield. Maybe still stash Xavier Jones if you want looking to stash someone, but I don't think I'll be drafting Sonny Michel or Darrell Henderson at all. What do you think, Trevin?
I agree. I don't think either one of them is actually that good, and I don't think either one of them is going to have a very big a volume this year. I think it's going to be pretty 50-50 on the splits, so I'm going to be avoiding both of them also.
Yeah, I don't feel great about it. Duchesne's has been adamant this whole time that Henderson is not good, and that was pretty well supported by the fact that they took him and then the next year took Cam Akers after seeing him a year with some pretty high draft capital, and now it's even further strengthened by the fact that they just traded for Sonny Michel. Sonny Michel I was pretty down on, and I think I even called him dust earlier today in our group chat, but I looked a little more after as I was preparing for the show, and he was better last year than I thought. So he only ended up playing in 9 games last season. He missed the first part of the year due to the preseason. He had a foot sprain that required surgery, and then he also had a quadricep strain in week 4 that he missed 6 games. So only played 9 total games last year, but his efficiency numbers were pretty good. He was number 2 in true yards per carry, number 1 in yards per touch among running backs, number 2 in breakaway run rate, number 15 in juke rate. I mean, yards created per touch, number 4. Like, I wasn't expecting him to be that good when I looked at his advanced stats, and so I don't know, like maybe Sonny Michel does be the lead back in this offense, or at least, maybe it's like a 60-40 or something, and with him getting the bulk of the opportunity. The thing with him, though, is he does not catch passes at all. His first couple of years when he played most of the season, he had 7 and 12 catches. Then he only had 7 last year as well. But those first 2 years, he had over 900 yards in 13 games as a rookie, and then 912 yards in a full season in 2019. And of course, New England has never, just picked a back in recent years and rode with them, but he was probably the closest thing they've had to a workhorse in recent years and did pretty well with it. So I don't know, I was really disappointed for Darrell Henderson that this happened, but they're sending a pretty clear message that they don't really believe in him as a talent, I think, and maybe Sonny Michel is a little better than I thought.
Maybe I can see him scoring a lot of touchdowns, maybe. But yeah, like you said, he's not going to catch the ball. That's Henderson. It's going to be definitely a timeshare. But they will have a pretty good offense. It'll be interesting to watch.
Yep, absolutely. Well, fellas, let's hop into the main event. And for tonight's main event, we are wrapping up our divisional previews with the AFC West, home of the Denver Broncos, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Superchargers, and the Trevin's beloved Las Vegas Raiders. Still feels a little weird to say that. Oh, fellas, we've got our Dynasty Buy, Dynasty Sell, Dynasty Stash, Redraft Sleeper, and Redraft Fade. You all know the drill by this point in our previews. Before we get started on this year, let's revisit last year. And last year we had Duchesne's on as our guest for this divisional preview. Dynasty Buys, I had Noah Fant. Brent, you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Duchesne's had Mike Williams. So kind of a mixed bag there, Brent. How you feeling about CEH after that last year?
I still kind of like it. I didn't have him as my dynasty buy this year, so he has dropped off a little bit, but I expect a pretty good year out of him.
Trevin, I know you hate him, so I won't ask you. Mm-hmm. Dynasty Sell, mine was Melvin Gordon. Brent, you also went with Melvin Gordon, which that one looks pretty good in hindsight. After they took Javonte Williams, and then Duchesne's picked Darren Waller, which, Darren Waller's looked pretty solid last year, and looks like he's in line for another good year this season. Dynasty Stash, all three of us picked Mecole Hardman, so that one didn't really pan out that well, but he is potentially the number 2 receiver in that offense this year, although that may or may not be relevant for fantasy purposes. Redraft Sleeper, I had Hunter Renfrow, which did not pan out. Brent, you went with Derek Carr, which was all right. And then Duchesne's chose Phillip Lindsay, so none of us knocked it out of the park there. And the redraft fade, I went with Austin Eckler, which not going to victory lap an injury there, but if you listen, that worked out okay. Brent, you went with Darren Waller, which probably not your best pick. And then Duchesne's went with Drew Lock. So no home runs, but no huge whiffs.
That was the fade, right? That last one?
Yeah.
I'd say Locke was pretty good. Ended up at quarterback 25. I think Duchesne's did pretty good there.
Yeah. I agree.
But what about me, Trevin? Waller only had 107 catches and 1,200 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, finished as tight end too, so good thing you didn't take him.
Well, Brett, let's see if you can redeem yourself in that category this year, but we're going to start off with our Dynasty buy, so hit us with that first.
All right, my buy is Jerry Judy, Denver Broncos wide receiver. He's ranked 31st wide receiver in the same area as Kenny Golladay, Robbie Anderson, Jamar Chase. I like him a lot better than those guys for Dynasty. Last year, he had 52 catches, 856 yards, and only 3 touchdowns with pretty core quarterback play. But I feel like he can be one of the NFL's most improved players, and I really think he can get over 80 catches, over 1,000 yards, and at least double his touchdowns from last year. So at least 6 touchdowns from last year. I think this year he'll be around a wide receiver 2, maybe a high-end wide receiver 2 by the end of the year. And since it's Dynasty, we're talking next year in 2022. What if he has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback? He can definitely be a top 5 wide receiver overall if he has Rodgers. But if he has some other guy like Deshaun Watson or a younger rookie that has potential, I can just see him being a wide receiver 1. But this year, Cortland Sutton, he's not fully healthy. He hasn't really had game speed practices yet. Teddy Bridgewater, I think he's a better quarterback for Judy. He just fits the mold a little bit better. And just by reading a lot of the beat writer stuff from Denver Broncos, he's really shown out, and they think that he can be one of the top receivers this year. And they all kind of agreed that Teddy Bridgewater is the better quarterback for him. Drew Lock, he might be better for other guys like KJ Hamler and maybe Sutton. But with Judy, they really think that Bridgewater is going to really look to Judy quite a bit. So I'm expecting pretty big things from Judy. So I think you definitely want to buy him.
I like it, Brent. I almost picked him for this, but I ended up going with him for another category. But one thing I will throw out there in support of your choice here is Cortland Sutton is an unrestricted free agent after this season. So there is a chance that Judy becomes the number 1. Or at least the clear number 1 in this offense next year if he isn't already the number 1 this year. So could be a lot of targets coming his way in 2022 if he performs well this season. Trevin, what do you think?
I like it too. I think people are even down on him with Bridgewater being named the quarterback, and that's not super exciting to have his receiver. We've talked about it before, but he actually had 3 of the Carolina receivers were all top 26 overall at the end of the year, with Robbie Anderson being 15th, DJ Moore was 23rd, and Curtis Samuel was 26th. And that's with Bridgewater only throwing, 15 or 16 touchdown passes last year. So he was still able to maintain his wide receivers at high points. So I still like it, even with Bridgewater being there. Good pick, Brent.
Nicely done, Mr. Hikus. Chuck Barkley, is that what you're rolling with this week? You want to take it and give us your dynasty buy?
Yeah. We all know this was coming. And I like to avoid taking Raiders players because I don't want to be on the bad side of
God.
If it goes bad for both sides, I don't want my fantasy team and my real team to be hurting. So I try to avoid it. But this is easily for me, Josh Jacobs. What are we doing? How is he falling down the value so far? I don't understand. He's had 18.4 carries per game his first 2 years. That's 295 carries a year. Even with 0 catches and dipping that down to 16 carries per game, that's still 256 carries on a year. That would still have ranked 3rd last year. So he's a high volume carry. Kenyon Drake isn't going to come in and take those carries away from him. And he still gets all the goal line work. He had 13 touchdowns last year. He was most carries in the NFL inside the red zone. He was 5th in carries from inside the 5-yard line. He had 12 touchdowns last year. He's just going to keep getting touchdowns. He's going to keep getting carries. I don't know why he's ranked like 20th for dynasty running backs, but that's his floor. He's going to do better than that. So that's who you take. Josh Jacobs, easy.
Good pick. Good pick. I like it. I don't have much in argument. I mean, with what he did the first 2 years was pretty impressive. I don't know what else you can ask for.
He's had over 1,300 yards each of his first 2 years.
Yeah, and like 19 touchdowns his first 2 years too. And last year he was more involved in the receiving game. I'm not worried about Kenyon Drake. So dynasty, but I mean, you are buying a running back, so I'm not thrilled with it, but I like it. So good pick.
Thanks, Brent.
I'm not as optimistic as Brent, but I don't think they brought in Kenyon Drake for no reason. I don't think he's going to take over the number 1 job or anything, but I think he's going to cut into the workload, which is really what you're buying when you're buying Josh Jacobs, as you pointed out, Trevin. And
here's the thing with Gruden, though. He doesn't know how to value players. He's the one-man show there. He's trying to be GM and coach. So everybody's like, well, he paid Kenyon Drake $11 million. He has no idea what that means. He doesn't spend enough time on that. So to him, it's just he wanted Kenyon Drake. Don't look at how much he's going to play based on how much money they gave him, because Gruden doesn't do that.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think he's much of an upgrade or even an upgrade than Devontae Booker. So that's how highly I feel about Kenyon Drake.
Regardless of how much he's getting paid, I think your point, Trevin, that you just raised is that Gruden likes him and brought him in intentionally, and I don't think he brought him in to not give him the ball at all. And Josh Jacobs dominated the touches last year, and anything this year that takes away from that is going to impact his fantasy value. So that's the one thing I worry about with him. And then the other thing is I think his efficiency was much better as a rookie than it was last year. So he got a little more carry, a few more touches last year, but his yards per carry went from 4.8 to 3.9.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about that. The Raiders were 6th on offensive line adjusted games lost last year. Trent Brown, who is now gone, missed 12 games. Richie Incognito missed 14 games, and some of the other guys missed some too. There's one game where the whole line was out with COVID. So people saying that some of the linemen are gone, they weren't there anyway. You know, I'm going to say one other point that people have been saying. He finished 9th last year for running backs, and I've heard other podcasts be like, well, that's because Barkley and McCaffrey and these other guys were gone, and that's why he finished 9th. Are you just going to drop everybody 3 spots then? Are we just not counting rankings because 3 of the top guys were gone? Is that what we're doing?
And Levi, you said he dominated the carrying last year. How many carries do you think Drake is going to get?
I don't know. Honestly, if he gets 30%, I think that's enough to hurt Jacobs, don't you?
So,
and that's what Booker was at last year.
That's
Booker had over 100 touches.
Yeah, he had 93 carries, 17 catches.
Yep.
So I wouldn't say that's dominating.
They're a run-heavy team.
Yeah.
I mean, what you just said. So Jacobs had 273, so he had about 75% of the carries between him and Booker had about 25. So I don't know, 30, 35, somewhere in there. All I know is I think that Drake has a little more juice than Devontae Booker. But if you guys would stop interrupting me and maybe let me give it through my points before you finish arguing. Trevin, yes, there were pieces missing from the offensive line last year, and that caused his efficiency to go down, but they didn't really do a lot to address that this offseason, and so I don't expect his efficiency to improve this year compared to last year. Do you?
That's my point, though, that's the floor, and he still finished with these pieces. He was running back 9 and had that efficiency stats.
But I'm expecting less volume this year is kind of my other point. So if he has the same level of efficiency and less volume, that's less production overall.
Sure, but I think even having a line that isn't missing guys every game. I know injuries still happen, but COVID tore through this line a couple times. That even just with this having the same guys improves his efficiency.
Yeah. I don't know from a touchdown perspective. I guess maybe you can tell me what you expect, Trevin, but he had 7 his rookie year and 12 last year. It'll be interesting to see if their offense is able to be as effective as it was last year and allow him to sustain that production going forward. And then if Drake does get any of those goal line carries, that could impact potentially that as well. To Brent's point, Devontae Booker had 3 touchdowns last year, so wasn't a huge factor, but I don't see, like, for him to stay where he is and maintain value or potentially increase in value if you're looking at him as a dynasty buy, he just has to keep getting that volume and the offense has to be just as good. And I don't know if I'm a believer. That's kind of the bottom line, I guess, Trevin. I don't hate it. Like, I think he's going to be starter worthy if he's healthy. I just don't know that I'm counting on running back 1 type numbers. I'd maybe look for more
and that's where
upper to mid running back 2
and
level.
I think that high, I'm not saying he's even where he's being drafted now, a running back 1 would be really high compared to where he's being drafted. But if he's just a high end 2, that's way outdoing where he's currently being drafted and his values in dynasty.
So according to DLF's ADP, he's currently going as running back 21. So he's a running back 2, but yeah,
that's what I mean. I think that's his floor based on how much volume I think he's going to get still. So if he just improves his efficiency, then I think you're buying at a low end running back 2, and he's going to be a running back 1 from what I'm saying. I mean, I'm a high end running back 2.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting, and he's going into year 3, and then obviously they have him next year since he was a first round pick as a rookie, so he'll have at least 4 years there with a 5th year option. It'll be interesting to see if they end up picking up that 5th year option, and if not, what kind of role he ends up in potentially elsewhere.
For a guy that had his 2 first year of stats to be saying he's all of a sudden 21, it's crazy to me. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah. If you're a contender and you're trying to add him as like a running back 3, I would definitely like that, but he's not a special player, I don't think, and so I'm not like going out of my way to try and buy him unless I'm, pushing all in for championship this year. That's kind of where I'm at.
I get it, Levi. We are talking dynasty, so I don't think I would buy him in dynasty, but I do like him a lot for this year.
I agree there. I think this year he is going to produce.
And, I mean, just like Trevin said, he's getting drafted as a low-end running back 2. He's definitely capable of being maybe even a low-end running back 1 or probably a high-end running back 2.
Yeah. I really wanted to pick him as my redraft fade, but he's going as running back 18, and I just couldn't do it. So
You're just trying to start shit. All right, move on. What do you got next?
My dynasty buy is the same one as last year. I just realized as I was going through our picks, it's Noah Fant. So he's currently going 79th in DLF startup ADP. Is tight end 7. And I think we all are pretty familiar with his history here. The Broncos' first-round pick in 2019, incredible athleticism, great career at Iowa, early breakout, great dominator rating. Checks all the boxes from prospect profile perspective. He's going into his third year. He's shown steady progress during the first two, which is really what I'm looking to see from a tight end those first couple of years. Finished as tight end 16 as a rookie, made the leap last year to tight end 8 in 2020. Last year, he was no lower than 7th at the position in targets, receptions, and yardage. And the only kind of stumbling block for him has been getting into the end zone. He scored 3 touchdowns in both of his first 2 seasons and had 4 end zone targets last year. So his touchdowns were about what you'd expect, but that's one of the things that's been holding him back. That could improve this season, but with Denver's kind of focus on the run, and they're also, we don't love Teddy Bridgewater, and we've talked a little bit about some of their wide receiver options with Sutton and Judy. There's a lot to steal from Brent, the cliche mouse to feed there, or a lot of options in that offense. And so that could be something that impacts his output. But I think he's going to be the real deal. He's first at tight end. He was first as among tight ends in run after the catch last season, or as a rookie, and he was 4th last year in 2020. So he's dynamic after the catch. But the reason really that he's my buy is he's going more than 2 rounds behind tight end 6, which is Mark Andrews, who's going 53rd overall. Hawkinson is tight end 5 and going 50th overall. So I have kind of in a tier with those guys, with Andrews and Hawkinson, but he's going, over two rounds later. So he looks like a great value compared to them right now. So when you can get a guy like that in the same tier at that type of a discount, that's maybe a place where I would be looking to buy.
Good pick. I like it. And you didn't even bring up that Aaron Rodgers could be his quarterback next year. So, I mean, I think pretty highly of a lot of these Broncos skill players. So I think they have the skill players. They just need a quarterback, and they could be a really good team. And fantasy wise, I mean, if I'm sure a quarterback would love to go there like Aaron Rodgers and make these guys great. So only quarterback away.
Trevin, the Raiders have also been rumored as a destination potentially for Aaron Rodgers. How upset are you going to be if he ends up in Denver? You're on mute, Trevin. Or something. We can't hear you.
Hello.
There we go.
Back.
Oh, no, that was a big fear of mine, is the Broncos to hit on a quarterback this year, because having Herbert and Mahomes both being these young studs, as it looks like with Herbert and Mahomes, of course, might be the best ever. I was like, oh my God, they're going to have 10 years of just nothing for the Raiders in this division. So happy that the Broncos haven't hit on one yet.
Yep. Any thoughts on Noah Fant?
I don't know. It's tough for me to see him breaking through to that top 3 or 4 tight end that you need to be actually making a difference and getting out of that middle. I like that he's priced a little bit lower than some of the other guys in the middle, but I just don't know if he can break through there with Bridgewater, especially being the quarterback. He was able to have 3 receivers there, but I just don't know if they have the volume to feed as many mouths as they have at the Broncos.
Yeah, that is the risk with him, I think. So that's a fair point. Trevin, do you want to go first with your dynasty sell?
Yeah, I think you can all see this one coming too. My dynasty sell is Clyde. I think his expectations were through the roof last year. I think he ended up going at like 8th or 9th player overall in startups. And it's just fallen since then because he didn't really produce. He did fine last year, but didn't produce where everybody was expecting him. And I think what everybody missed was they thought he'd be a Westbrook type player.
Trevin, we lost you.
So he was.
I'm glad Trevin's editing the show tonight.
I know. Yeah, I agree. But he's actually on mute, like on the actual thing. But anyway, he was talking about how.
I can't unmute him. So Trevin's done. It's the Clyde Edwards-Helaire slander is what got.
I know, and I obviously get what he's talking about because I really thought of Edwards-Helaire with the Brian Westbrook comparisons, and that's why I really liked him. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like he still can get to that now that Edwards-Helaire is spent a year in the offense, and he showed us, at least running the ball, that he can handle the load. So let's see if he can. I mean, he's hurt right now, which probably doesn't help. But I don't know. What do you think about Clyde this year, Levi?
I like Clyde. I'm not as down as Trevin. When you look at his stats from last year, he put up over 1,000 yards combined between rushing and receiving, 800 yards on the ground, and then he added an additional 36 catches for 297 yards, so 1,100 yards total. He didn't have a lot of touchdowns, which I think is really what kind of held him back. He only had 4 touchdowns in the rushing game and 1 receiving, and we saw that first game of the year he kind of got stuffed at the goal line over and over, and then just was kind of never able to recover after that. And so I think that could be one of the things that's skewing people's perception of him a little bit compared to what his actual value was, is just some of the frustration associated with that. He's just kind of average, I guess, across the board when you look at his efficiency. Like, he's, number 25 in juke rate. He's number 12 in breakaway runs. He's number 24 in yards per touch. I mean, I don't think he's a special talent. And I think just like last year, we were all expecting him to be extremely productive because of his situation. And we've talked about this before, how he kind of vaulted up draft boards after the draft because he ended up in Kansas City with that first-round draft capital, and not necessarily because we love the player. And I think that's kind of still where I'm at with him, is that I think he's going to be a lower-end running back 1 or maybe a higher-end running back 2, as long as he's the guy in Kansas City, but I don't think he's ever going to reach those upper. I don't think he has the upside of like a running back, a top 5 running back overall in a given season. So I'm not selling him, but if you drafted him last year, I don't think he's ever going to be the player you hoped he was when you took him probably 1st or 2nd overall in your rookie draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I mean, I know for a while, like towards as the season got closer, his ADP did go up a lot to if you're starting a dynasty startup, it was in the first round, late first round. Even in best balls, I know he was going I've seen him get drafted in the top 5 in best balls last year. They obviously didn't get the price they drafted him at, but I mean, I still have hope for him. He might not be what I thought he was going to be last year, but I mean, he's still the starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the top, probably the top offense in the league. So, and he's shown that he can have good rushing games. Maybe this year he shows us that he can be a better receiver out of the backfield, and they'll use him as a receiver out of the backfield, which would help his fantasy stock quite a bit if they did that. So
I think that's the thing that's hard with him, is that is his one thing he is great at, is catching the ball out of the backfield. And we were all really excited to see that with Patrick Mahomes. But Mahomes just goes downfield to Kelsey and to Hill and looks for those either consistent, middle of the field, 10, 15, 20 yards to Kelsey, or the deep shots to Hill, or whatever the case might be. He's not really checking it down to the running backs that often. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the things that holds Clyde Edwards-Helaire back a little bit, is his elite thing isn't being utilized to its maximum capacity because of the way Patrick Mahomes likes to play. And that's great for the Chiefs in real life, that he's pushing the ball down the field and they're scoring a lot, but it's not great for Clyde's fantasy production.
And another thing I just thought of, their offensive line, it's new, young, improved. A lot of younger guys that I really like. So maybe they'll become a force, at least. I mean, just by reading all these things, I know these guys they're hyped up to be great run blockers. So it'll be fun to see that. So, Trevin, are you with us?
I don't know. Testing.
There, we hear you.
He's back.
All right. So I had all these points for Clyde. Can I go through my points now?
Sure. You can try.
So you were really touching on what I was just getting started on, Levi, that the thing that we thought was going to happen was he'd be a Westbrook role where they're finding all these ways to get the running back the ball on passing situations. But when you have Mahomes, maybe the best quarterback ever at throwing the ball downfield, you don't want to just be throwing the ball at the line of scrimmage. And that's, I think, what everybody missed when he's coming into the league, including myself. And so the Chiefs, even before Mahomes got there, they were in the bottom half of the league in throwing to the running back. And so it's gotten even worse since Mahomes has been there. So I just don't see those catches going up, no matter how good Clyde is at catching. Why do that when you can throw the ball downfield? So that's one thing with it. And then also Clyde was terrible at getting the short yardage situations. He carried the ball 31 times where he needed 3 or fewer yards, and he converted only 55% of those, which ranked 71st out of all 84 players who had double-digit attempts in that situation, which the line could improve, but his teammates were already doing better than that. Le'Veon Bell was 71%, and Darrell Williams was 60% last year.
Look at you breaking out these advanced stats.
That's a good stat.
Inside the 5-yard line, Clyde only converted 2 of 10 carries for touchdowns when the league average is 45%. And so he's just hasn't been a short yardage guy, even when his teammates were better at it with the same line. And so where he's not going to get a dramatic increase in touchdowns, I don't think they're going to start throwing it to the running back when they still have Mahomes and these weapons downfield. I just don't see him improving from he's going to get a lot of rushing yards again, but I think we saw a ceiling last year. I think he's going to have a similar year again, but I don't see ways for him to improve. As far as fantasy goes, I think they're going to be a good team still, and he's going to be a good running back. I just don't see how he gets more fantasy points.
Yeah, I think the way he has to do it is to become more efficient in those short yardage and especially on the goal line, and hope that he is the one who continues to get those opportunities. But if those go away, or if he doesn't improve, they will ultimately go away. But either way, if he isn't able to do that, I think you're right, Trevin, that is going to cap his upside significantly.
Thanks for waiting for me.
Yeah. Like I said, we're glad you're the one editing tonight, since you're the one with all these issues. I'll go next with my dynasty sell. Now that Trevin's got his frustrations out, I'm going to frustrate him again.
You son of a bitch.
Mine's Derek Carr. Carr is currently going 182nd overall as quarterback 24 in DLF startup ADP. And I kind of like we talked about with Clyde, I just don't see a lot of upside for him. He has yet to finish an NFL season lower than 14th in pass attempts, but he has yet to post a top 10 fantasy season. Finished 13th last season despite pushing the ball down the field more often. He had a career high 8.2 average depth of throw, which led to a career best yards per attempt of almost 8. But he doesn't have much with his legs. 39 carries for 140 yards and 3 touchdowns last season, and that was easily his career best. And he has kind of an underwhelming supporting cast too, with his receivers other than Darren Waller as pass catchers out there. He's now 30, and his contract runs through next season. But after this year, they can cut him with no dead cap, and his cap hit for next year would be $20 million. As we discussed a little bit ago, the Raiders have been listed as a potential destination that Aaron Rodgers would be okay with. And it wouldn't surprise me really if they potentially drafted someone next year if they don't land Rodgers or Watson or somebody like that this offseason. Or this season, potentially. And I just think Carr is kind of on that career trajectory where he's kind of a decent quarterback, but he doesn't have enough upside for a franchise to really make him the guy going forward. And now he's on the wrong side of 30, which won't help that either. So I could kind of see him bouncing around like a Teddy Bridgewater or Tyrod Taylor or Ryan Fitzpatrick, which isn't very appealing for fantasy. And I think with that potential of him being out in Oakland or Las Vegas, after this year, that his fantasy value could go down significantly. So I'd be trying to get out while I could. Some super flex trades I found on the DLF trade finder that I liked. Carr and James Conner for Jamar Chase, which maybe I would have felt a little bit better about before the Jamar Chase news of Instagram allegation of domestic violence from his pregnant baby's mother came out this week. So keep an eye on that if you haven't heard about it. Carr for a 2022 first and second round pick, be all right. Carr for Chris Carson straight up, or Carr for Amari Cooper straight up. would all be deals that I would kind of be intrigued by if I were a Carr owner. So, Trevin, I'll let you go first since this is your boy. How do you feel about Derek Carr as a Raiders fan from both a real life and a fantasy perspective?
I'm not going to make light of any serious allegations like that, but I've pregnant baby's mother.
I don't know what else you want to call her. It's the mother of his unborn baby.
Okay. First point, Derek Carr, as far as I can tell, finished 8th in 2016, the year when they had the great year. So I don't know why you're saying he's never finished top 10. But besides that, he has consistently been between that 15 and 20 range. So I think you know what you're getting. I think anybody you're trading for knows what you're getting. So I just don't know if you have another quarterback that's going to start every game, then great. But I wouldn't be trading him if you don't have another quarterback because he's going to start every game. But he's just a consistent guy. He's been great for the Raiders. After all their struggles they have, it hasn't been through the quarterback. Of course, he kind of limits their ceiling, but he's the one guy you can count on for that Raiders team. But I get it. If you can make a trade for him, if you're not going to compete this year, there's no reason to have him on your team and just to win some games where he's not going to win you a championship in fantasy.
Yeah, that quote I had about never having a top 10 season came from ESPN, and I think they may have been looking at the full 17-week season, and that season.
Oh, what he got hurt? Jeepers creepers.
So I'm just saying,
he still finished 10th when he got hurt.
10th, and he was 0.16 away ahead of Russell Wilson, according to Fantasy Pro scoring. So ESPN scoring may vary slightly, and that could explain it. But at any rate, it doesn't make a huge difference to the rest of your points.
Well, somebody's got to stick up for him.
I will, Trevin. I will. I mean, I don't like it that much. I don't think. First of all, I don't think you can get that much for him. Those trades that you mentioned, yes, I would love to have Jamar Chase instead of Derek Carr. Yes, I would love to have a first and a second round rookie draft pick instead of Derek Carr. Even the other one, Chris Carson and somebody else. I mean,
Amari Cooper, straight up.
And Amari Cooper. I mean, I can't believe people are doing that.
So which is it, Brent? You say you don't think you can get much for him, but then you like all these trades.
I mean, I don't know what type of league those are. I mean, they're
crazy. Super flex.
Okay,
so Carr has a little more value.
I don't know. I don't know. Carr did probably have one of his best years last year. Not very good receivers. Couple rookie receivers. Nelson Aguilar. Hunter, I guess he's a rookie too, wasn't he?
Second year last year. This will be
second year. He made those guys look pretty good. I mean, aside from Ruggs and Edwards, but Renfro looked pretty good, and Aguilar had his best season ever. So I don't think he's a bad quarterback, and I do think. I mean, I think he's going to be around for at least another 3 or 4 years starting at quarterback somewhere. So, I mean, if you want to hold on to him, I mean, he's not going to be great for fantasy. But if you need a quarterback in Superflex, I think he's worth it. But if you can get guys like Jamar Chase and Amari Cooper for him, go for it. I just don't think you can. So, but I mean, I like Carr. I've always kind of liked Carr. So he is what he is. He's consistent, like Trevin said.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's primarily the lack of upside for me, and then also the fact that I don't know whether he'll be the quarterback in Oakland next year. What's your prediction there, Trevin? Do you think he will be?
I think it is. I think there's just no way to coax a free agent to Las Vegas. There's better options for a free agent to go. And I don't see him having a high enough draft pick where a quarterback's just going to come in and be the starter and a drafted quarterback. So I think he's going to be there.
I expect them to win like 7 or 8 games, so they probably won't have a high draft pick, and there's a good chance that he'll be back.
You're cutting out. You said win 14 games, I think.
I think, his cap hit isn't huge either. I think it's like $20 million, so it's not like that's.
I think they had a get out before this season, and they rolled with him still, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think it was a huge dead cap, but it's 0 next year was what I was looking at. So, all right, Brent, who's your sell?
This one. This was tough, and I'm just throwing it out there. Justin Herbert. I'm picking Herbert. I know. I'm picking Herbert because I think he's ranked higher than he's ever going to be in his whole career. A lot of people have him in the top 5 as dynasty quarterbacks. I just don't see it right now. I do think he's top 10. I think he's a pretty good quarterback, and he exceeded my expectations last year. I just don't know I'm not for sure if he can do that again. He might get close, but he's definitely not top 5 dynasty quarterback. Great year. Now that teams have a year's worth of film on him, could hurt him. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but maybe try throwing out an offer. I'm not saying you should try to get rid of him, but I think it's worth throwing out an offer. Maybe get a young quarterback like Trey Lance or Justin Fields and a running back to help out your team, or a running back or a wide receiver, whatever you have your weakness in. Maybe you can get a good deal for another young quarterback, and you can help out your team this year. I think that would be a good trade if you're looking to sell Herbert. I just see the sophomore slump coming, and I think it'd be a good time to sell him right now. But if you can't, I'm more than likely going to be wrong. So, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
You're really selling it.
This one is tough for me. It was tough to find a sell.
I can't get behind you on this one, Brett.
I get it.
He just did so good. He did 15 games, 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. And he even ran for, what did he run for here? 230 yards with 5 touchdowns, which gives you some rushing stats too. It's not like Lamar Jackson, but man, it'd be tough for me to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah. Especially to come in and do that as a rookie, and Tyrod Taylor was supposed to be the starter there and started that first game before they punctured his lung.
Had 5 minutes of prep time to run out there.
Yeah. So you can poke some holes maybe in what he did last year, but it's tough. And to be that good as a rookie, and especially if it's a super flex league, you have a quarterback that had that type of season as a rookie and has potentially 15 or 20 years ahead of him. It's tough to sell, but I don't hate your idea of trying to sell him for another quarterback and an extra piece if you need it or something. But
the only scenario I can really think of is if you got him, you probably picked pretty late in that rookie draft 2 years ago. So you probably had 2 startable quarterbacks and you weren't really expecting him to go nuts. So maybe you still have those 2 and you can really get running back to fill out your roster or something. But besides that, it'd be tough for me to trade away Herbert right now. You seem pretty set for at least the next 10 years, maybe 15, 20 years.
I get it. I like that, Levi. After you got done talking about Tyrod Taylor with his lung, you said, I think you can maybe poke some holes. And maybe
I'm glad somebody's picking up on that. Oh, man. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if his numbers are a little down this year, in part because I expect that defense to be better now that they're all healthy, if they can stay healthy. But, yeah, he threw the ball a lot last year, and he was good. He was number 4 in pass attempts, number 5 in team pass plays per game. So he's getting a lot of volume, and he was doing well with it. So a lot to like, Brent. I hear where you're coming from, though, as far as it's tough to find a sell, and his value is very high right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go first with my Dynasty Stash, kind of playing off this Chargers topic. Mine's Josh Palmer. So he's currently going as wide receiver 74 in DLF startup ADP. And rookie drafts, he's going 28th overall, so third rounder as wide receiver 14. The Chargers drafted him in the middle of the third round out of Tennessee. He has good size, 6'1", 210, but he doesn't check a lot of the boxes I typically like to see. He kind of had below average as far as college dominator, age 21 breakout, which was his 4th season in college, and then below average athleticism as well. So you might be asking yourself why I am stashing him. And the answer to that question is opportunity. So behind Keenan Allen, the Chargers have Mike Williams, Jaylen Guyton, and Tyron Johnson. Mike Williams is a free agent after this season. I wouldn't be shocked if they let him walk. Guyton and Johnson don't worry me too much, just given the draft capital that the team invested in Palmer. And because of that, I think there's a good chance that Palmer flashes this year in that third wide receiver role, and he has an opportunity potentially to move into that wide receiver 2 chair in this offense in 2022. We just kind of touched on it, but I think we expect this offense to be pretty good again, and he's tethered to that promising young quarterback in Herbert. So if he flashes, he's going to see a spike in value, and at that point, you'll have the opportunity to either sell at a profit or hold and get some production if you are a true believer in Josh Palmer's talent, which I'm not all the way in yet. We'll see what he looks like on the field. But what do you guys think about him as a stash?
I like the pick. It's he had horrible quarterback play at Tennessee in college, so that might be why he was older guy who broke out, and he just might be a late bloomer. In the Senior Bowl, he was one of the better receivers out of that camp. So, and he sounds, just by looking at the preseason, he's in there with the starters for the first couple series. He's in there with starting the game. So, I think he has that number 3 spot close to getting locked up. So he has a huge role, and with a guy like Herbert at quarterback, could have even a decent year this year, and then who knows next year. Good pick.
Thanks, Brent.
You want to know why a dumb reason I like him, Levi? Because
so many possibilities here.
Marquez Callaway, I also like a lot. Also went to Tennessee and never did much. I think it's just a Tennessee thing that they can't figure out how to use these guys and come into the league and outperform their draft capital. So I like him, especially it doesn't look like I would bet they move on from Mike Williams, who's been disappointing there, and he could be stepping into that number 2 role as soon as next year.
And who knows? He could be Herbert's favorite receiver for the next 10 to 15 years. So
it's possible.
You never know.
It is going to be a little harder for him to outperform his draft capital than it is for Marquez Callaway as an undrafted free agent. Trevin, who are you stashing?
I'm stashing Seth Williams, who got drafted by, unfortunately, the Broncos, who's got a crowded receiver room there. Seth Williams is at Auburn. He's very tall, pretty fast, limited route runner, but he actually broke out every year at Auburn, and I've liked taking him in different dynasty leagues because, like you said, I believe earlier, Levi, that sorry, I'm lost here. Sutton and Patrick are both going to be free agents at the end of the year, so he could be stepping into more of a starter role next year. So I like to stash him this year. Hopefully he learns the position a little more, learns some more routes, and can get some more playing time next year.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I definitely don't think he does anything this year, but for next year he might have a role with Patrick gone and probably Sutton gone. There's going to be that spot, so not a bad pick.
Yeah, to your point, Trevor, he does check a lot of those boxes, and he was getting some buzz in the fantasy community going into the NFL draft, but didn't get that draft capital that a lot of people were hoping for, so that kind of pushed him down boards. But I think one of the main concerns from some of the people that I've read who watch a lot of film is just that he isn't a great separator, and he kind of tries to use his physicality and his size to go up and get the ball. And it'll be interesting to see how that translates to the NFL. Maybe that's one of the reasons that he didn't get the draft capital some people were hoping for. But I think as far as a stash, I like the pick, Trevin.
Yeah, doesn't seem to have a great motor from a lot of clips out there and limited route runner, but hopefully he can turn around because it seems to have the physical gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Brent, who's your stash?
My stash is another Broncos receiver, KJ Hamler. He might not be a stash anymore after all the buzz he's been getting out of preseason and his long 70-some yard touchdown that he had from Locke earlier or last weekend. But I absolutely love watching this guy play. He only had 30 catches for 381 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. But he had hamstring issues throughout the whole year. Honestly, a couple of years ago, 2018, 2019, he was one of the best college football players in the whole nation. He was so fun to watch. He was really good. I remember watching that Ohio State game when he was a freshman. It kind of introduced him to college football, and he he was there was Ohio State corner guarding him. Just took him to school, took him like 80 yards, and I was like, wow, that guy is amazing. And he's had a great freshman year. Sophomore year was good, but it just, I mean, he did everything though. It's just return game, running game, receiving game. He's a lot of fun to watch, and he's one of my favorite college football players. Now he's in the NFL. He's healthy. He has a year experience. I think Drew Lock probably would have been a better quarterback for him this year, but next year, new quarterback, maybe a better opportunity with Sutton gone. I think KJ Hamler, he's going to have a role this year. He's going to be that number 3 number 3 wide receiver, and maybe next year he'll have that number 2 wide receiver spot. So I really like Hamler.
Yeah, he's a guy who's picking up quite a bit on the cheap last year in rookie drafts. But Trevin, thoughts on Hamler?
Yeah, I like it. Like we said, with the Sutton and Patrick being gone, most likely both of them being gone next year, between Hamler and Williams, one of them could be in for a big volume next year.
Trevin, I'm going to say something that's going to make you very upset. The
What?
Raiders should have taken Tristan Wirfs and then got Hamler later in that draft instead of Ruggs. And they would have had just as good of a player in that role.
Probably.
And had a franchise tackle to go along with him.
I think you missed that they selected Leatherwood this year, who is playing right tackle. So
you'd rather have him than Tristan
joke's
Wirfs
on you.
and KJ Hamler. No, I like Hamler a lot. Brent, I think I saw in Player Profiler isn't loading right now, so I can't confirm, but I think he played quite a bit in the slot last year. So it'll be interesting this year with Sutton back to see if they end up keeping him there or moving Judy inside more. I think Judy was in the slot about 30% last season. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how they use him this year, and I like his upside quite a bit in that Broncos offense. All right. Brent, do you want to hit us with your redraft sleeper first?
Sleeper, I'll be quick with it. Josh Jacobs. We talked a lot about him earlier. Like Trevin said, 1,300 total yards in each of his first 2 years. It's pretty impressive. 12 touchdowns last year. He improved and he got involved in the receiving game last year. I like him better than Miles Sanders, Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis, which are guys that are getting drafted around him. Like I said before, I'm not worried about Kenyon Drake. I just think he's going to be a steal for a lot of people, and there's a good chance that he could be a low-end running back 1.
You got anything to say to that, Levi?
No, I think I've talked about Josh Jacobs too much already tonight. So I'll let it go if you let it go. How about that?
Yeah, we'll move on to my redraft sleeper. Josh Jacobs. I'm staking my entire reputation on Josh Jacobs. Get him in everything.
You're picking the same guy for your redraft sleeper in your dynasty buy.
Yes. Not only do I want him long-term, I want him short-term. That's how badly he's falling on these draft boards for no reason. He's currently ADP 18 running back in ESPN. I'd easily take him 10th running back, 9th running back. So we've talked about it enough for the reasons why, but he's my redraft sleeper.
Love it.
You just broke one of the unwritten rules, so now I am morally obligated to throw one high and inside.
You son of a bitch.
So you better be prepared. Mine is Jerry Judy. Judy, we talked a little bit about already with Brent's pick as dynasty buy, but he's 21st among receivers last year with 113 targets. They used him primarily as a vertical threat. His average target distance was over 13 yards, which ranked 18th among receivers. And so that resulted in him finishing 6th among receivers in air yards. The problem was his quarterbacks were bad. Only 63% of his targets were catchable, which ranked 105th among wide receivers. As a result, he ended up as wide receiver 61 in fantasy and only had 2 top 30 fantasy weeks. But as Brent mentioned earlier, I think he has quite a bit of upside with some better quarterback play, and I think Bridgewater can provide that. He was number 1. Teddy Bridgewater was number 1 in accuracy rating last year among quarterbacks, but he does tend to keep the ball closer to the line of scrimmage. He had just over 7 air yards per attempt, which ranked 28th among quarterbacks. So Teddy is pretty conservative, to say the least, but he is accurate. And with Sutton back, like I just mentioned, maybe Judy gets some of that work closer to the line and thrives with Teddy. And like I mentioned, he played in the slot on 29% of his snaps last season. So that's my pitch for Jerry Judy in redraft this year.
Yep.
I will. Oh, go ahead, Trevor.
No, I was going to just agree with you. We talked about Judy before, so I like him. I think it definitely improves with Teddy. Locke was so bad last year. It's hilarious to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So here comes the one high and inside. I'll tell you before I throw it.
Whatever.
My redraft fade is Henry Ruggs III. He's being drafted 112th overall as wide receiver 49. Appeared in 13 games last year, played a pretty good 555 snaps, but had 26 catches for 452 yards and 2 touchdowns on 43 targets. And then he also added 49 yards on 9 carries. He had 2 weekly fantasy finishes better than 46th, and he's currently going as wide receiver 49. He has that incredible speed, as we all know, and he was used as a vertical threat as a rookie. 16.9 average depth of target, but only 3 targets per game, no more than 5 in a single game, and that's just not going to get it done for fantasy. I'm still a Bryan Edwards believer, and I think Waller, Renfro, and Edwards have skill sets that better align to Carr's skills and the offense that the Raiders run. Henry Ruggs is going right behind guys like Marvin Jones, Corey Davis, and Curtis Samuel, and just ahead of Mike Williams. I would take all of those guys over Ruggs pretty easily. So don't make the same mistake the Raiders did. Avoid Ruggs in your draft.
All right, fine. We'll get into the Ruggs discussion. It's disappointing that the Raiders haven't found better ways to use him. I've been watching a lot of Ruggs game tape from Alabama. He wasn't just running deep routes. They threw a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage, a lot of screens and bubbles and swing passes to get him in space and to let him use his speed. And then first year with the Raiders, they're just running him deep and heaving it once in a while. So it's going to come down to finding better ways to use him. And also he just has to be better at using leverage and stuff. Watching Raiders game tape, a lot of the issues they had with him and Carr's communication where it just seemed like Ruggs wasn't quite sure how to use leverage and which way to go on option routes and stuff like that. So it's I like him that he's cheap, and I do at his range. I don't mind taking somebody that could explode and win you some weeks. I'm not really looking for consistent 6 points a game at that stage where he's being drafted, but I can't really disagree with you too much. It's still a little bit too high if I'm just going to be taking shots at guys that might explode and win me a week or two.
You are blowing my hair back tonight. Not only are you bringing us a ton of great advanced stats, you're also now a film guy, I've learned. So
I've been trying to talk myself into Ruggs, and it's just so I've just been watching a lot of film on him and reading a lot about him, just trying to find a way to believe and have optimism for what's going on.
Look out. Trevin's got you covered. No matter you like stats, he's got them. You like film, he's got it. His Patreon is no doubt coming soon.
You know who's terrible, just because we're diving down my film watching rabbit hole, is Damon Arnett, the cornerback that they took in the first round last year. Jesus Christ. Film guys are just like, I don't even know what this guy's doing, and it's just terrible to watch him. So I don't have a lot of hope for him, but Ruggs has a little bit of hope. Seems like the problems he has are fixable if he can do it.
Should have traded down instead and took Hamler.
Oh, you think? You shouldn't have took another DB for the 10th time, Gruden?
All right, I'm done trolling Trevin for the night, unless he has a really surprising fade here. So, Trevin, is that the case?
Oh, yep. My fade is Noah Fant. I just don't really see it. We talked about him a little bit before when you had him as your buy, Levi. I'm just worried this year there's just not going to be enough volume to be feeding all those different receivers they have. They got talented receivers at Denver. So I just don't see him cracking into that top 3 or 4 this year for tight ends. So it's just not a guy that I'm going to be drafting at the wide receiver 8 when in 6 through 12 we've been seeing in the past. They have a lot of the same stats. So I'm just going to wait on tight end if I'm in that range and get a guy later on.
Well, for me, I think Fant is the guy that I'm waiting for later on. So I'm not a big fan of this pick for Fade and Fant. So, I mean, if
sure.
you
and if I can get Fant or I can get Higbee 5 rounds later, I'll just wait and get Higbee 5 rounds later.
Yeah, and I don't know.
I'm just a bigger believer in Fant's talent. Like I think Fant has the upside that Higbee lacks, and that's why he's going where he's going. But it's also why I'm willing to take a shot on him, even though he is in somewhat of a potentially crowded situation. So I don't hate it, Trevin. I see where you're coming from. It's just I'm a pretty big believer in Fant, I guess. Bigger than I realized before tonight, maybe.
I think you need to look at some stats when Higbee was on the field without Everett.
I like Higbee this year, Levi. So
did you know Higbee is the only tight end to ever have 4 100-yard receiving games in a row?
Yeah. How did he do overall last season, Trevin?
Well, Everett was still around. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
And who's his quarterback, Levi?
It is Matthew Stafford.
There we go.
I think we all agree now that Fant is a sell or a fade.
Yeah.
No.
All right, Brent, who's your fade?
I felt like I kind of took the easy route with this one. I'm fading Melvin Gordon.
Patrick Mahomes. Oh.
Melvin Gordon. The only thing is that the reason why I brought him up, I think it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of obvious you kind of want to stay away from Gordon, I think, but I still see people drafting him over like Damian Harris, Trey Sermon, and even his partner in the backfield, Javonte Williams. I think this is his backfield, and we're going to notice that early, and I just think it's going to be obvious very soon. Who knows? I mean, they have capable running backs even behind Melvin Gordon with Royce Freeman and Mike Boone. So don't be surprised to see those guys get some touches too, even over Gordon. So I don't have any shares of Gordon this year, that's for sure.
I don't, and probably won't either. I see that being kind of a timeshare, Brent, this year between him and Javonte Williams, to the point that neither is really somebody you can rely on for fantasy purposes. So I'm probably avoiding both of them, but I think Gordon will have a role in this offense to some degree.
He's surprisingly, I remember him being bad last year, and he finished as running back 18. So
yeah, he had a good year.
But I also don't like him. It's just that his redraft in ESPN is 32 running back, which I don't hate. I can talk myself into taking him around that range. Just ahead of Zach Moss and A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, he's kind of in that one where you're just taking flyers and hoping somebody pans out. All right, fellas, we completed it. Our divisional previews are done just in time for the season. Next week we'll have a little something different for you, so we'll look forward to that. In the meantime, let's do our question of the week. So, Brent, you came up with this one. I'll let you tee it up.
Yeah, I was just thinking now that we're all in Camps to Canton, at least in one Campus to Canton league, and college football is having week 0 this week. Not a lot of teams playing, but what college players are you looking forward to watching this weekend? We have Nebraska, Illinois, UConn, Fresno State, Hawaii, UCLA, UTEP and New Mexico State, and San Jose and Southern Utah. I know it's not a lot to choose from, but there are still a couple. If you're in a deep Campus to Canton league, what type of guys are you looking forward to watching this weekend?
Evan, I know you did some research for this, so I'll let you take the first stab at it here.
Yeah, so there's a couple guys. It is cool being in this Campus to Canton League. It's making me be more interested in a lot of different college games that usually I'm just a Nebraska and other big game watcher. But some of the guys I'm looking for, Fresno State, Jaylen Cropper is a wide receiver I took. Had a pretty good sophomore year, led the team in receptions and yards, and coming into this year, it looks like they're going to have a high-scoring offense again. He's the first Fresno State receiver since Adams to have a Mountain West Offensive Player of the Week. So he's done really good things. See if he could do better things in Fresno State. Could have a lot of fun year. And then for Nebraska, Gabe Irvin, who wasn't super highly recruited as far as stars. He's a 3-star, but had some big offers coming out of Georgia, from Florida State, Georgia Tech, and might be the starting running back for the Huskers, who Huskers had some down years, but still being a freshman starting running back would be quite an achievement for him. So he might have a lot of juice. Utah has a tight end named Brant Kuthi, who kind of lines up all over, runs the ball, has a lot of catches. Is a guy I missed on getting in the Campus to Canton League that I wanted, but he should be fun to watch. How about you guys?
Damn. Go ahead, Levi.
I was laughing because I think that's Southern Utah, right? That you have playing this week, Brent, not Utah, or am I mistaken here?
It's Southern Utah. Did I not put that?
Oh, I thought the S was separate from the Utah, so I thought Utah was playing. So that is my mistake.
You're gonna have to wait one more week to watch your boy, Brent.
I guess so.
You mentioned Cropper at Fresno State, Trevin. I think that offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch. They have Jake Hayner, who's also a good C2C level quarterback, probably contributor on the college side, and then Ronnie Rivers is a running back, who's I think one of the top running backs in college fantasy last season. So that'll be fun to watch. Hawaii,
you're only favored by like 30 points right now against UConn, so that should be a pretty close game.
Yeah. How UConn has fallen. Hawaii has an intriguing quarterback in Chiffon Cordero for C2C purposes, so that'll be kind of fun. Probably a late night kickoff, maybe, I imagine, for that one.
Probably.
Between them and UCLA. And then UCLA has Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who I think is kind of intriguing as well, to see how he pans out. And then they have Michigan transfer Zach Charbonnet playing his first game for UCLA at running back, who was highly touted going into Michigan and decided that he didn't want to be in the Jim Harbaugh spiral of death offense anymore. So he was transferred out there to play with Chip Kelly, and I'll be intrigued to see if he's regains any of the notoriety he had as a recruit now that he's in a potentially better situation. So those are probably the highlights for me, is kind of checking out those quarterbacks and then seeing how Charbonnet looks. Brent, what about you?
Besides a few of the Nebraska players, and Trevin kind of covered the biggest one, mine is Calvin Turner, Hawaii running back. He was their leading receiver last year in receiving yards. Kind of excited to see him play a pretty good team in UCLA and see if they can maybe pull off the upset. And I mean, I own Calvin Turner in my Campus the Canton League, so I'm excited to watch him, and I'm excited to see Ronnie Rivers too for Fresno State. So I'm just excited for college football. It's here, a couple days away.
Here.
I know. Well, this weekend, fellas, we've got football, and Ronnie Rivers is such a fun name to say.
It terrifies me that. Go ahead.
Reminds me of playing NCAA football back when they were still making it, and just all the fun small school players you would discover like that and fall in love with if you're doing a dynasty with that school.
It terrifies me that the Huskers are the very first game of the whole college football season.
That's crazy.
We're gonna have a lot of eyes on us.
I know.
No pressure, Scott. Let's do a quick beer check before we go, fellas. I have a Samuel Adams Summer Ale. It's pretty good. I'll go 7.6. Brent?
Oh, you're muted, Brent.
Brent's on mute.
Sorry, guys. I had too many beers to drink tonight. Boulevard Brewing Company from Kansas City, called Easy Sport. It's with a tangerine peel and sea salt. So we'll see.
Classy. I like that one. I've had it.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Was it the tangerine peel or the sea salt that did it for you, Trevin?
Definitely the tangerine.
Yeah, I can really tell it was a tangerine. But yeah, I'd say 7.2. Pretty good beer.
Nice.
Still working through my different assorted Yinglings. I had a Yingling Flight tonight. It's kind of their light beer. It's pretty good summer beer. I think I've probably had it on the show. We'll say tonight it was a 7.5.
Very nice.
Only 95 calories.
Watching your figure?
Yeah.
You can be, in a couple of months, you'll be able to embrace the dad bod, so you won't have to worry so much.
It's good to know.
Something to look forward to. All right, fellas, and let's all look forward to a little football this weekend, and then we got another week from tomorrow after that 2 weeks from tomorrow until the NFL is back. So we made it. The off season is over in just a few short days. Until then, thanks for being part of the Fantasy Players Club, everybody. We'll have a new episode for you next week that'll live stream on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Until then, on behalf of Brent Hudhud Hikus and Trevin, the Baby Maker from Osta, this is Levi the Heartbreak and Valentine. Wishing you a great week.
See ya.
See ya.
All right. Trevin, did we do a good job containing our Raiders hate, or was that too much for you?
No, you're fine.
I think Brent went pretty easy on you.
That's because the Raiders are good. There's no reason to not be.
I like Jacobs this year. He gets too much crap.
Yeah. Does Frost get fired if we lose to Illinois? Just like right after the game?
Might as well.
That's what I think too. What's the point?
Gotta win that game.
Yeah. It's. I just keep looking at the schedule. It's so tough to even get to 6 wins if we don't win the first 3.
Yeah.
Even winning the first 3 doesn't guarantee us 6, but I don't know how the hell we do it if we don't win the first 3.
Man. Trevin, I'm looking at the Raiders record by year here.
Oh.
I was trying to figure out when the last time they were over 500 was, and it was that magical 2016 year that you mentioned, but they lost to the Texans in the wild card game.
Yeah, because they didn't have Carr. Stupid Connor Cook was the starting quarterback. It's unbelievable. It's so just, oh, God. It's so not fair. Carr played so good. The team, it was just a magical season. Then he gets hurt on a nothing. They're already up 14 on the Colts. And it was the only sack that lineman gave up. I can't think the lineman's name now. Gave up all year. Unbelievable. Not fair. The world's not fair.
Oh, man.
Just look at the record since Gruden got there. It's crazy that
I'm looking at the record. Going back to 2003, that was the only time they finished above 500.
Oh, yeah, it's nuts. It's so – I can't believe my whole life they've been just 20 years of terrible.
Yeah, and of course 2002 was the year they lost in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. But, yeah, Gruden gets paid $10 million a year to just not have winning records. It's nuts.
He is 8-8 last year, 7-9, and 4-12 his first 2 years.
Improving, huh?
He is improving. 4-7-8. What more can you ask for? Keeps that up, they'll be 17-0 before too long.
Yeah.
They started out pretty good last year. They were
both the last 2 years. They started 6-3 both years.
Yeah, they did. Jeez. Then they almost beat Kansas City when they were 6-3, but lost that game. It kind of fell apart after that.
Well, they did beat them.
Was that the first or the second?
I'm talking about the second game in Week 11. They beat them in Week 5.
Oh yeah.
And in Week 11, when they were 6-3, they lost to them, and then they only won 2 more after that.
And that was the Dolphins game is what did in the playoffs, like did in all the dreams, where Arnett. Yeah. They can't even believe it. These highlights I'm watching, he just passes them off to nobody on a last-second throw that Fitzgerald just throws it down the field to a wide-open guy to get in the field goal range. It's crazy, these films I'm watching of Arnett just passing. Like, he's not a fast guy, so he's brought in to be like a zone guy, and he just has no idea when to pass guys off. It's crazy.
Remember that game they won on the last play against the Jets?
Yeah, that was cool.
That turned out to be kind of dumb for both teams, huh?
No, that was awesome. That's why I got that Ruggs tattoo.
And then the Jets go on to win a game later in the year anyway, so it didn't even matter that they lost that one.
Yeah, it was Week 16 against the Dolphins where that happened.
It's fun seeing you get your hopes up every year and then just getting them crushed.
Is it?
Incognito's back.
Yep. I said that on the Jacobs part.
He's still probably one of the top run blockers in the league, so
yeah, he's still a solid guard. It's pretty wild. God, that stupid stuff he's doing at Miami where it seemed like he might not play another game. It's like 8 years ago at this point.
I know.
He's still in the league.
Yeah, 38 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. He's got to be up there for the oldest lineman in the league.
Yeah.
Got to be.
He definitely fits the Raiders' historical culture.
Being good.
Yeah, that one.
But with his past and his age, I mean, his play still overcomes all that, and that's why he's still got to be one of the top run blockers in the league. I mean, just with his history and everything. It's crazy.
He's not a guy I would want to run into in a dark alley.
Yes, that's for sure.
God, they only lost to the Bills by 7 last year. I don't remember that. The week before they beat the Chiefs.
I feel like they were a pretty good team last year. They just got a little unlucky. How they lose to Atlanta by
it's crazy.
37 points.
It was immediate, too.
Jesus.
They're down like 21 in 5 minutes. It's crazy.
Holy smokes.
If you count the moral victories, they're above 500, Trevin.
That's what matters. That's why Green gets that paycheck.
They won at Cleveland, too. Only held Cleveland to 6 points.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's funny, Trevin? I sent you that video of the Cowboys flyover thing last night for their just huge practice campus and what city was that in Texas?
Fresno.
I don't remember if that was it or not. But anyway, it's an HBO is part of Hard Knocks. I think they filmed that, and if you haven't seen it, go check it out. I'll retweet it on the Fantasy Players Club account. But I bet Jerry Jones spent more of his own money on that project than Al Davis has in equity in the Raiders.
Al Davis is dead.
Or Mark Davis, whatever.
I don't know about that.
It's wild to think about.
The Raiders have got to be worth, just because they're an NFL team, $4 billion.
No, but didn't we say that Mark Davis's net worth is like $500 million or something?
Yeah.
When we did that deep dive?
Yeah, you're right, because he only owns a quarter of it. Him and his mom own half of it.
Just wild.
Yep. Hard Knocks kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's. I find myself kind of not really dozing off, but just I turn it on and I don't really watch it. I watched that first part though when it showed the drone going around that facility. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
it was the Raiders season that kind of ruined Hard Knocks for me, because there's all that Antonio Brown stuff that's like being reported at the time, and they still weren't showing any of it on Hard Knocks. So it was pretty clear that the NFL, whatever NFL team they were with, was nixing a lot of what they could show.
I haven't watched any of it yet, but based on your guys' reviews, I don't think I will.
Yeah,
it's nothing great.
Not worth it. Not worth it.
Did you say Frisco, Trevin?
Yeah, that's what I said. Is that it?
Yep, you're right. It'd be pretty cool to be a high school that gets to play there.
Yeah, I can't believe that. I didn't know they had that huge facility, indoor practice facility that seats like 5,000 people still or whatever.
Yeah, I think they said it was 12,000.
Is it?
Either way. Crazy.
My God.
91 acres. That's what got me is like, I don't even know. I mean, they show some of the outside, but I don't know what those other buildings are that you just have this 91-acre campus.
Yeah. We got to get predictions for the game this week for the Huskers.
Oh, jeez. What's the spread?
7.
7.
It's been at 7 forever.
Nebraska is favored.
Yeah. 55's over under.
Do you know we've given up 1,000 rushing yards to Illinois the last 3 games total?
I did not know that.
How crazy is that? God damn it. It's not like Illinois sent a lot of guys to the NFL or nothing. It's crazy.
I think they got a better coach this year, but it is his first game. I think
Illinois guy.
not really, but he's better than Lovie Smith. I'm picking Illinois to cover, but Nebraska's going to win. Close one.
Ooh. If it's close, that's going to be disappointing.
Come on, it's a away Big Ten game. You got to be happy with that. You got to be happy with the win.
We can't. I just want to win some games, but still, even saying you got to be happy to beat Illinois.
I know.
Lovie Smith scored
first game
45 points on us last year and ran for like 500 yards, and it still wasn't good enough to save his job. That's how much it didn't
Nebraska
matter.
have a bunch of turnovers in that game too.
Yeah.
All right, what's your pick, Trevin?
I need to just be on the positive side. Nebraska wins easy, 17 points.
Well, you got to do a score.
They win by 17. Let's say 45-28.
I like that. That's similar to what I was thinking. I was looking at that box score from the Nebraska-Illinois game last year. Illinois won 41-23. Nebraska had 5 turnovers, 2 fumbles lost, and 3 interceptions. Oh, nice. My God. And that was at home, too.
Martinez was the quarterback for that game, I assume, right?
No, I think that's the one that – yeah, that's the one we switched.
Was that McCaffrey?
Yeah.
Oh, was that the game?
What a wild stat line. Do you want to hear his stat line?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah.
15 for 26, 134 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Ooh.
And then he had 26 carries for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Jesus Christ. So was that the game when, like, one of the first plays of the game, he looks like he's going to run it, then he throws it sideways?
I think that's right.
I had that turnover like immediately.
Yeah. I think that was a bad call, but that was bad. He shouldn't have done that.
He should have never done that.
First play of the game. Here's how it reads in the play-by-play. Luke McCaffrey run for 4 yards to the Nebraska 21. Luke McCaffrey fumbled, recovered by Illinois' Jake Hansen.
Okay. That was the first play?
Yeah.
Damn. Did he win the starting job at Rice?
I have no idea.
I totally forgot about that. I'm going to check on that real quick.
I'll go with...
Oh, my God. I just watched the play. He, ran past the line of scrimmage. I forgot all about this.
Uh-huh.
He ran past the line of scrimmage before he tried to whip it to the side. It's like...
And wasn't it, really close to whether it was actually forward or backwards?
Yeah, because he's 3 yards past the line, and he just whips it sideways to a guy that's covered.
I do feel like it was a bad call.
I just sent it to the chat. It's the very first 5 seconds of the video.
I'll go with 38-27.
Nebraska.
This is one of the funnier things I've ever seen.
This play?
Yeah.
Jeez. Didn't they not review if it was forward or backwards too?
I don't remember.
Right.
If I remember, I was just grabbing my beer to sit down to watch the game. I don't know if I even saw it happen live.
And that's what I don't know. Don't they script the first so many plays and practice those routinely throughout the week? And that's the first play. Man, wild.
That's
all right.
I'm so concerned with. I'm not going to leave a lot of this in. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, I could end it whenever you want.
I'm so concerned with Martinez, though. We're just acting like he's going to be good all of a sudden. When he got it beat out last year by a guy that can't throw the football.
I guess.
And there's not even any talk of competition this year.
Well, we can only hope that the receivers are a lot better from last year. I don't know.
Well, it wouldn't have mattered if receivers were just standing open 15 yards downfield. He couldn't hit them last year.
I know.
I hope so, though. Made my prediction already. I'm all in. Quit trying to bring me down, Levi.
It's going to be wild if Frost gets fired and he just had Martinez as his quarterback the whole entire time and could never get anybody else, and that's what caused his downfall.
Did you see that text I sent you, Levi?
Oh no, did I?
Sent it to you too, Brent.
Oh yeah, I accidentally checking in on the Love Show. Yeah, I tweeted, tune in for a Love Show with the fellas. On the when I retweeted, because I tried to tweet it while we were talking. And then I realized it and replied with live show, but a little too late. Sorry to disappoint anyone who was tuning in for the Love Show tonight.
Wall says not as much skin as I was hoping for.
Yeah, speaking of Love Show, I should have mentioned this at the top. Brent, our listeners and their demand to see your content on OnlyFans has caused them to reverse their decision.
Oh,
I just came out today.
Honestly, I don't know much about what you guys were talking about last week. I looked into it a little bit more, and yes, I mean, it sounds like I looked into OnlyFans, and I got myself a profile started, and my feet will be live for everyone to see. Maybe the 1st of September. So.
You got to be careful.
Stay tuned.
You started a program and did your research, Brent, or started a profile. I mean, I bet you did a lot of research on there, Brent.
Well, honestly, when you were talking about it, I was like, "What are they talking about?" And then I knew there's some website like a porn type website or something. That I didn't know much about it, but yeah. Yeah, I kind of played along with you guys. You didn't have that on the show sheet last week, so flustered me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't. It just felt like if you're gonna not allow that, that's been your whole business model since the very beginning. So I don't know how you're just gonna say, "Oh, you can't do that anymore," and then expect to still have a viable business.
Yeah, it won't do
card
well.
Companies. Did you see that?
That's what they said, but there's got to be a way to figure out that without. I mean, your choices are figure that out or not have a business, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
So what else we got on OnlyFans?
That's all we got. Tune in next week for the latest developments on Brent's foot page on OnlyFans. Tip him. Send him some tips. See you, everybody.
See ya.
Yeah. Oh, he's just out of here, huh?
Just logged himself out. Shit, hopefully he can. Oh,